Hello and welcome to the after show for Vampire the Masquerade Silence of Shadows episode 1. So
welcome back!
Yeah.
Woo! How do you all feel?
Whew, getting back into the swing of things.
Yeah, but it still kind of feels like home, right? I can feel like I got right back up on that bike.
Like we were saying on break, I hope it feels like you're kind of stepping into a pair of well-worn shoes. Like, these are familiar, these are comfortable. To some degree, of course, there are changes. But, you know, like getting back into a world, fast forwarding 10 years later where the landscape has shifted, it could have, you know, you guys could have flopped hard on returning to your characters, but you didn't, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Man, it felt good to be back. It's like just being back at the helm of Chicago again is nice.
Yep. Great dramatic introduction.
Yeah.
Dakota immediately losing a humanity point. Holy shit.
Oh, I need to make a stain roll.
Stain roll.
Yeah, make your stain roll.
Episode 1.
I'm
I
so
need to do a little bit
worried about
more
this.
like research on what 4 now means for Dakota.
-2 and
Critical pass.
Nice.
Woo.
Ooh, nice. I'm thinking more like what does it mean for her in terms of the way that she's now interacting in the world? Because I feel like once you bridge across to 4, you've
Shit's dangerous.
4's
Yeah.
where you really lose that ability to connect with people. Like 5 is like you feel a bit disconnected, but 4 is where you've just completely gone.
Nah, 3 is because that's where you get -4.
yeah.
Roll.
Woo!
2 is you're
Yeah.
you're detached, but you're not fully sociopathic yet.
Yeah, like I think 4's like that. Like you're like, people, whatever.
Yeah.
But like 3's you're like they serve us their food. I don't care. That's what they are.
Are you guys all good? Are you tired? I know I'm tired, but I didn't. So I laid I did the rest of that thing until like 2:30. I finally laid down at like 3, and I slept for like 2 hours. I was like, I can't do this.
Yeah. Oh.
I was so excited. I was so nervous. I was so nervous getting back into this because you, like you said, you kind of get back and you're like, it feels like home, but you also want to like sequels, right? You want to get people right back into it in episode 1. You want to hook the new people and then make the people who know it immediately interested in the mysteries that might be going on again without confusing new people. There's a lot of stuff I've never had to consider before as a storyteller. It was very interesting.
Yeah.
I think it was really good in several ways how you got us back in, because for a start, you did an immediate hook. You also indicated to us and the viewers that things are going to be more dangerous by chucking Second Inquisition in the very first episode in the first half, which is an indication of, like, guys, these came up halfway through and nearly killed Ollie in season 1. I'm throwing them at you in season 2 at the very start. You also did situations in which, like, Dakota, straight into her prime of revenge, killing a guy. Zach, fixing a situation. Ava immediately started in her social situation where it's like, these are.
It was important to me to just, you know, shine a spotlight on where your characters are in a scene, basically let the scene.
It doesn't just do that though. It also works for the player by the player like immediately feeling like how their mechanics work and reminding them of how they worked like in season 1 and being like, right, that's how this character works.
Yeah. I'm glad that worked. You guys, but again, you know, as I've said many times, it wouldn't be anything without you guys. You guys are incredible players and actors, and it's been a lot of fun.
I think one of my favorite things is like, at least for everybody at home, we've spent so much time discussing what their change has looked like.
Oh
like,
yeah,
I think everybody's done such a great job with the individual characters. Like,
we've been working on season 2 since halfway through Game of Thrones. Really, I think is when we started to really buckle down. Like, all right,
I think it was before that.
I was listening back because you and I had a chat early on.
Yeah, I had a few cursory chats with all the players prior to like Game of Thrones starting, or right around when Game of Thrones is starting. Yeah, this has been on my plate for months, and it has been a lot of work, but it has been a lot of passionate work. It's probably the hardest I've worked on any campaign ever.
Well, it shows if it means anything.
It definitely shows.
Which is why I'm not trying to like, yes, thank you. Yes. I'm not trying to pat myself on the back, but it's interesting because it's a new experience for me, and it's so stressful and rewarding. And I didn't expect, and then Chicago by Night dropped, and I was like, I'm not going to Chicago by Night.
I love your
Literally
response to
the
that.
next day, I'm like reading the book, and I'm like, oh, fuck.
It dropped, and your first response was, I don't have time to look at that. And then the next day you went, I looked at it, oh my god, it's brilliant. I'm using all of this, and I was like, oh no, this is weak.
There's a lot to love in Chicago by Night. As just a campaign setting, just raw as it is wonderful. And because, White Wolf, to their detriment and also to their benefit, they leave a lot of open-ended things. So it's so easy to kind of push this aside and slot in mine and pluck that out and replace it with something else.
Honestly, for any system I've looked at where it's got fluff attached, it is the best system for how much it's connected but enough disjointed that you can just take it away. Like, you can also put your own spin on things.
Yeah. It's also really nice to not have a map that's Google Maps. I enjoyed my Google Maps and I really enjoyed drawing those territories, but man, I was so happy I didn't have to do that ever again.
Yeah.
I love the maps are very have a lot of personality. Sorry, I'm babbling a lot.
It's also got really good lore sheets, like so good.
Yeah, the lore sheets are great.
Yeah. Wow. I think every single one of you took a new lore sheet in some way.
Yep.
I genuinely think every one of you put into some lore sheet stuff. But if you're into VTM and you're looking to run a Chicago campaign and you're on the fence about Chicago by Night, well, I have some complaints about it. I have complaints about every rule book. It's well worth the pickup. It's well worth the pickup. And it's from somebody who owned the Chicago by Night book for Vampire Requiem. Interesting to see what aspects of it actually still kind of carry over and what don't. Because Max, the name I pulled, and kind of the clan I pulled was from the Requiem book. Max was the Prince of Requiem Chicago.
Yeah.
So Jackson being the Prince of this one, I was like, I like him as a character. There are some things I'm going to shift around and change about him, but I'm going to definitely use him. So that's why I popped him onto the Permission Council, or not the Venture Council.
Venture Council, yeah.
That's the other thing I'm really excited to play with that I couldn't do in season 1 because you were all new. Was now I get to play with territories. Now I get to play with politics and feeding grounds and border disputes. All that shit is interesting. That was another thing I really wanted to get across in this season, in this session, which is why I was so happy we had that Asylum scene. Because that Asylum scene with Zach was something that Zach never, I don't think, ever really got a scene like that in season 1 the entire time. Nobody was going to deal with Zach. And by the end of it, you guys were such a fucking mess that anybody came near you was going to be tainted by your reputation. But now there's been enough time, and I get to have that scene. And it was just...
I just forgot, I've had a merit since the very beginning of Season 1, which never came up all that often, which is Antonius Architecture +2 to any domain-related roles, including domain politics. It's gonna be so good this season!
Yeah, it's gonna be fucking super valuable. And I'm also, like... Man, I'm gonna go through each character and just... One nugget I'm really excited to explore. So with Zach, I'm really pumped to explore how he handles domain politics. It's something that, like you said, you've been having a specialty since forever, and you haven't really got to play with it. Now it's going to come to the forefront. I'm curious how you're going to use that to your advantage. I'm very interested in exploring Dakota as a hound to the Camarilla and her reputation with gangrels on each side of that aisle, what that means for her and how that's going to play off in the long run, especially when the lupines and werewolves are starting to act up in Chicago again, especially with the history of Chicago, which we'll talk about at some point. Ava, I'm curious how long she's content being Sienna's servant's a strong word, but it suits what I'm trying to say. And how long before Ava, if she ever does, try to make moves of her own.
I totally anticipate it's going to be Ava makes moves against Sienna because that will get a one-up and under Bella.
Yeah, I mean, that's completely legitimate.
Yeah.
And what I'm excited to explore with Ollie, I can't talk about until Ollie is here.
That makes sense. So I actually have a question, and maybe we've talked about this method, and it's been a while. Like, what is Dakota and the prince's relationship now that she's not bonded? It's definitely not as close.
No, she's very busy, but it's respectful. And like I said to you in the breakdown, she's toyed the idea of making you Magnus Canis, which is the prince's pet. So clearly the relationship is very good. The fact that you broke the blood bond willingly, she gave you the choice, and then you continued to be super loyal to the Camarilla, was a show to her that those lessons she was teaching you didn't fall on deaf ears.
Yeah.
So there's the trusted. Those dogs you were given didn't come until the blood bond was already broken. Those were gifted.
That's what
Anyone wondering about the translation? Magnus Canis literally means
big dog.
Big dog.
Great dog. Yeah.
Yeah.
What that entails, we'll talk about if it ever happens, but it's something she's been dangling in front of your nose for some time now.
By the way, Zach, I think you handled the deals in the asylum very well.
Me too.
Did a great job negotiating.
Is the coterie okay with me giving a minor boon away from the coterie?
Absolutely perfect. Like, you gave just the amount of information.
It was superbly played.
Great negotiating. I was like, yes.
That's the stuff that I'm really pumped to play with this season.
One of the things that I've made the focus point of Zach in the 10 years is that he always keeps every deal that he goes into, because he wants that reputation of he is someone who you can definitely go to with a problem and he will fix it to the best of his ability. No problem is completely fixable, but he will go and he will try and do it and he won't screw you over, and he's going to try and make that middle ground as a cative outside the clan structure to be yeah, all the clans fuck each other over, but
yeah,
that's not my job.
Yep. Yeah. Oh man. So before we wrap up, and if there's more questions, I would love to keep talking, but there were a few of you that were concerned about stepping back into the roles of your former characters because of A, how things ended, and B, potentialities, how things would have played out over 10 years. How are you all feeling now? Session 1 is done. We've only just scratched the surface of what's to come. But how are you all feeling after 4 hours of being yourselves again?
I don't have more thumbs.
I'm nervous to meet Ollie again. That's the one thing.
Wait.
I'm very, very nervous for next session.
Are you happy about too? Sorry, continue.
Oh yeah, I mean definitely. Yes. I think what Dot is interested in is finally seeing having to do something for the Camarilla, because I'm sure over the 10 years she's done it, but I've not play through that and what that dynamic is like.
There isn't nightly problems that the hounds have to clean up.
Right. This is why she has a boat. She hangs out on her boat with her dogs and she waits until she's given something to do. And so this is a really, Zach coming along and offering this stepdad situation, which we've been working on, was way outside of probably the norm of everything else. Dakota's probably spent a lot of time alone, and she's probably spent a lot of time in meditation. I think I was telling EE that earlier, that Dakota is trying to, as previous, find a neutral ground with her beast. She's not trying to ignore it. She's trying to accept it and find a solace in it. And I think
if you've been explicit with that with Zach would have probably joined you a couple of times, because he's also been helping you learn to read occasionally, and probably would have also done some meditation with you. I don't think he'd find it super useful in the end, because he's a very much
I don't think Dakota does either, but she keeps convincing herself of it. She's like, if I just meditate long enough, if I just do this thing long enough. And then when the stepfather piece was brought to the table, it was well, none of this other shit's working. Maybe what I really need to do is just wipe my past clean. I just need to accept that I need to get rid of everything that ties me to who I once was, and then I can accept better who I actually am now. Which wound up in being humanity level 4, so that's fine.
Yeah, and
unfortunately, you lost the role to your frenzy. That's a bummer, but it doesn't mean you can't earn humanity back. I mean, you can buy humanity, which is, it would be 50 experience to get back up to 5 for you. But hopefully, something else we can explore is more touchstones and convictions, and seeing if there's a moment where you can put aside all you are, and for one good action to give you a point of humanity. That's
right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Actually, those of you who are wondering, people might have wondered about the remorse roll. I deliberately cultivated Disgrazer in my herd for +1 to remorse rolls when I feed off them, because I am deathly afraid of losing humanity as a person who talks to mortals all the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were some old V20 Tremere stuff that we homebrewed, ritualized. Well, mostly EE homebrew ritualized them with a few changes.
We might end up tweaking them a little bit further down the line. They're still very much beta-y.
Yeah, because we have a new book on the horizon that might that promises at least to kind of expand on the stuff that we homebrewed. So
guys, if you haven't heard, the Player's Guide is coming out later this year. They delayed it. I'm so sad, but it's going to have Ravnos, I think Gaiavani. It's going to have a whole load of more merits. And also, it's gonna have loads of new discipline stuff, and a lot of stuff apparently for warlocks and blood mages. And I'm I want all of these things. Give them to me.
Wow.
Man, I am so fucking tired.
Right? Yeah, I hear that.
Dude, I recognized the GM last minute crunch symptoms, even though you were so quiet. I was I recognize this. This is the occasional sporadic blurt of messages when you're taking a second to look at Discord, going back to stuff.
I'm just I gotta get out. It's been so long, but I'm happy to be back, and I'm so happy to be playing with you guys again.
Yeah, me too.
Let's have an incredible season 2 ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Anyway, thank you much for watching the after show. Next week we will have Above, so we'll have Ollie back.
Yes, a whole coterie.
That's going to be fun. Right. Thank you for watching. Until next time, may the dice roll ever in your favor, and do your best with your remorse rolls. Humanity 4 scary.
Bye.
Bye.